Hello NBC, this is Dane talking. This is my audition for your new show, Food Fighters. I'm 45 years old. I live here in Woburn, Massachusetts, just north of Boston. I'm an outdoor recreational specialist. I do outreach for REI, which is Recreational Equipment Incorporated. We sell outdoor gear and apparel, and I also do education and trips and everything related to public relations for REI here in the Boston market. I love to do a lot of things in the outdoors, and of course I love to cook. But before we get into that, I just want to show you a quick preview of my house. So as my wife, who's my lovely camera woman today, pans over to the living room, you can see two things. One, it's a bit of a mess, and two, you notice there's some video game paraphernalia in the back corner there. We'll get more into that later because collecting video games is one of my favorite hobbies. But like I said before, I also like to go outside and cook. My website, Cooking in the Great Outdoors, explores the crossroads where outdoor recreation and cooking meet. And I've been doing that for just over a year now, and it's been very successful. Some of the things I do in the outdoors is I've been skydiving, I kayak surf, I stand-up paddleboard, snowboard, I've even been known to lift weights once in a while. I got in fighting shape in my mid-30s, and I'm going to get back in that fighting shape for your show. I've also been bitten by a shark back in my days as a marine biologist. We'll talk about that if and when you do get me on the show. So I'm an adventure nut. I love to go outside, like I said, do all these outdoor recreational activities, and then I just get so hungry I gotta come back and cook. And I usually cook outside, hence the name of the show, Cooking in the Great Outdoors, my web show. But today, since I know I'll be cooking in the kitchen on Food Fighters, I want to go ahead and cook in my kitchen. Now my kitchen is a little bit less fancy than what we'll probably see on the set, but just bear with us because this is where I cook every day. But one more thing before we get started in the kitchen, I want to introduce you to one of my best friends and my mascot, Jackson. Here he comes. This is Jackson. Sit, Jackson. He is our rescued Rottweiler. He's about 3.5 years old, and we got Jackson from North Carolina just over a year and a half ago. And he is one of my best friends, and he's my cohort in the great outdoors. Jackson, go to your place. It's time to cook. Good job. Now Jackson's going to stay in there while we get to cooking. So, come on into the kitchen. Tonight what I'm going to make for you is one of my new signature recipes. It's my play on the Scotch egg. I'm not going to get too technical with you, but basically we're going to take the traditional Scotch egg, which is a poached egg that's deep fried, and we're going to throw it on sear a little bit. I got some special herbs and spices. I'm going to pair that with some bacon, and I'm also going to pair it with some fresh locally produced aquacultured seaweed as a substrate to bring a little brightness to the dish. So while I'm doing this, the first thing we got to do is cook our bacon. I put it in a mixture of a little bit of brandy. That'll come in handy with the fire in a few minutes. And some brown sugar. So we're going to make some sweet brandy glazed bacon to accompany our Scotch eggs. Now the subject of fire, while the heat's getting up, on the subject of fire, every year my wife and I host several dinner parties for our friends and family and everybody in the area. We get up to 30 people in this little confined space and also outside, and we cook for them. And one of the biggest parties we throw every year is Chinese New Year. And one of my signature dishes for Chinese New Year is my flaming roasted duck. Once again, flamed up with a little bit of brandy, roasted to a crisp in the oven to where the skin is nice and crispy and the meat is so juicy everybody loves it. A couple years ago we gave away a whole duck. Somebody took a whole duck home because they didn't want to leave it here for us to eat. So once again, that's one of my specialties. Since I'm going to be working with bacon and grease, got to make sure I have my apron on here. What's that? Cooking in the Great Outdoors, that's right, that's my web show. I used to be a marine biologist, and that's where I dove with sharks. And at one point, while as a marine biologist, I actually got bit by a shark. Now you can't see it very well on this camera, I'm sure. Now you guys can see that in person when you had me on NBC. And I got bit by a shark because we were transporting a 7-foot sand tiger shark from holding to its destination aquarium. One of my favorite tools for going outside and recording what we do is this GoPro camera. Usually it's strapped to my head as I'm snowboarding or whatnot, but today we're gonna strap it to the stove for a little fisheye view of what's going on. Alright, so my bacon is starting to fry up nicely. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this brandy, and then we're gonna have a little fun with this, alright? A little more brandy. turn out the light. Kids, don't do this at home. And you can see we got a little flambe there. And so what we're doing is we're crystallizing the sugar, coating the bacon with that brandy. There you go. And that's going to give it a real nice crisp flavor to counteract the richness of the Scotch egg, because you're going to have a lot of fried stuff. I got a little secret for you. That Scotch egg is going to be cooked in a little bit of duck fat left over from our Chinese New Year party. So once again, I try to use local ingredients, and when I can't, I try to save as many components of those ingredients to use later. Now, as you can see, we're getting a nice flame there. Hopefully the GoPro still on. Hopefully we're not frying or melting the GoPro, so we'll have a little bit of that down from a high above footage a little bit later. Now what we're going to do after we get the bacon fried up, we're going to poach our eggs. So they're going to be poached in some green tea. And I have the eggs all separated, whole eggs cracked and ready to go for the poaching. Then we're going to batter them in my special batter. We're going to fry them in the duck fat. And when it's all said and done, we're going to serve it over that seaweed. It's going to be amazing. Now once again, some of the things I love to do in the outdoors is I love to go snowboarding. Just recently I took a trip through knee-deep snow. You guys may have heard of the blizzard called Nemo that just hit the Northeast. Well, that was last weekend, and I was walking around in knee-deep snow in snowboard boots, climbing up to the top of the closest hill to snowboard down because we couldn't go anywhere in the cars. And most recently, I've actually gone snowboarding up in New Hampshire as well. I love the kayak surf, which is basically taking a full enclosed kayak and surfing it like a surfboard in ocean waves. I do whitewater kayaking. I love to rock climb. Anything outdoors that's active, that builds up my appetite, you're going to find me doing that in the great outdoors. And while I'm over here, I do want to show you, this is my grandmother's cast iron skillet. Now, one of my biggest influences, both in my life and in my cooking, is my grandmother. She's a southern cook from Alabama, and as a kid, I grew up watching her in the kitchen cooking all the great southern dishes. So that stays on my wall to remind me of my inspiration and to keep fighting for my grandmother and her culinary skills. Now, for those of you, they told me not to give you too many tips because they don't want this to be too boring, but I'm going to take a poached egg, and what I'm going to do, and hopefully the GoPro camera will catch this, is I'm just going to ease this in. That's eased into my tea. So this is green tea that I brewed earlier today. It's warmed up to a simmer, and I put my poached eggs in there. We want 3 poached eggs. Why 3, you ask? Well, whenever I'm plating food, it's a little thing I learned not too long ago, is I try to use odd number of ingredients. For whatever reason, that seems to be more pleasing to people. People want to see 1s, 3s, 5s. They don't want to see 2s. They feel bad about breaking up the pair, I think, which is kind of nice. So I always do my stuff in 3, so we're going to have 3 egg yolks. While the egg yolks are poaching, and we're going to do that for 4.5 minutes exact. I want to show you guys, I'll show it on the GoPro. Here's the fresh seaweed that I just rinsed. And I also have some pickled seaweed. I'm going to show it on the GoPro over here. Little pickled seaweed. This seaweed has been pickling in rice and wine vinegar for a couple days. That's going to give it a little tartness, but that also shrinks up the seaweed. So you can see the comparison between the two. Pickled seaweed on this side, fresh seaweed on that side. We're going to mix them and use that as a bed for the Scotch eggs. I'm going to set my plate down here. Now the key to getting these poached eggs out is making sure we don't break the yolk, because that's the most important part. It's nice and easy, slide it off. I'm going to try to cut this one a little bit. Nice and easy, slide that off as well. Ooh, they look good. Don't pop on me, buddy. Don't pop on me. And we have one more. Alright, so we're going to let those cool down for just a minute because we want them to set up just a little bit so that when we put them in the flour, they fry and they don't break. Because the best thing about the Scotch eggs is when you cut into it and that yolk just runs over everything, that's amazing. Alright folks, so now we're ready to take the poached eggs, dip them in the batter, and deep fry them in the goose fat. And then once they're nice and light, it'll only take a few seconds, and we're going to serve them up on the seaweed over here. So, take our eggs, we've allowed them to cool, get a little bit firm. Get a spoon here. Alright, so we're going to put the Scotch egg battered in a little bit of panko and breadcrumbs and cornmeal. And we're going to very lightly, easily, and gently lower it into the oil. Actually, the best bet is to go ahead and use this. Whoa! Hey. Go ahead and lower this into the oil very gently so we don't burn ourselves. Boom. And it's not going to take much time at all. All it takes to get that Scotch egg done up perfectly. Alright, 2 more to go, folks, and we'll serve them up. And we're ready to plate for food fighters. So we're going to take our seaweed. We take our fresh seaweed, GoPro cameras on so you can see that. Nice and green and fresh. And we're going to mix it with a little bit of our pickled seaweed that's been pickled in some rice wine vinegar. And then we're going to take our 3 Scotch eggs. And we're just going to lay them over the bed of seaweed like that. We're going to take our bacon that we cooked up and flamed up in a little bit of brandy and brown sugar. Going to lay that right over the Scotch eggs. And we're going to take a little of this sauce, which once again is some soy sauce, sriracha, chili pepper, and then some Old Mother garlic black bean sauce. And we're going to take some of this Parm cheese and we're just going to sprinkle that on top for a little pièce de résistance. That is so good. And we're going to take you down to the basement arcade where I collect and play classic video games from the 80s. So follow me. Dane Tolak's specialized Scotch eggs made just for you. So this is the type of thing that I'll bring to your ring, NBC. Food fighters,